Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mallory West, and again, we really appreciate you joining us here on our KNOE streaming platform. Well, our first story today is going to take us over to Monroe. The Monroe Mayor, Friday Ellis, announced today that he's vetoed 2 city council ordinances. Ellis says he vetoed a move to annex 26 acres into the city because the infrastructure was not built to city standards and may require a lot of reconstruction. He says he vetoed the harassment ordinance because the city already has, quote, a comprehensive anti-harassment, discrimination, and retaliation policy. He says the vetoes were not related to disputes between some council members and city employees.
We would love to find ways to grow our city through annexation or to help with ways that we may fall short, but that starts at the table. We want you to do this with us, not to us. We're going to continue to lead with integrity. We're going to continue to lead this city in a manner to which that's how I was raised. And that's all I know how to do. And so we'll continue to lead in that manner. And hopefully with a positive example of the highest elected official in this city, that others can follow suit.
Ellis also says when it came to the annexation ordinance, the developer is pursuing public funding to offset infrastructure costs. Well, a big economic announcement for Monroe. A national energy company is breaking ground and bringing in hundreds of new jobs. Faith Technologies Incorporated has started work on a 500,000 square foot manufacturing facility off Highway 594. It's bringing in 200 new direct jobs, and officials project 350 more support jobs could be created by other employers. Now moving on to some other news, an effort to recall the Attorney General and Governor Jeff Landry comes to Northeast Louisiana. Some may sign the recall, but others say the Governor and Attorney General have done good things for the state of Louisiana. Elijah Mangum reports.
We're not happy with decisions that he's making. And especially not being concerned about all residents of the state. He has his constituents that he's favoring, and we feel like our voices should be heard.
Those who want to sign the recall petition have to show an ID before signing their name. Officials say they must collect 500,000 signatures for the Secretary of State to call for a recall, but they are aiming for 1 million. One person in Ruston who signed the petition had concerns over Governor Jeff Landry's job performance.
Well, I hope it succeeds and we enter a recall election because I think Louisiana deserves a governor that actually cares for the people and doesn't care about cozying up to the next president in Washington.
The Louisiana Republican Party responded to the Landry recall by citing exceeded pre-pandemic reading and math scores, auto premiums falling nearly by 6% last year, and largest income tax cuts in state history. They also cited Attorney General Liz Murrill was responsible for Louisiana becoming the first state to require the 10 Commandments in every public school classroom and the arrest of 515 people for sex crimes with minors. In Ruston, Elijah Mangum, KNOE 8 News.
And in other news, some local superintendents disagree with Governor Landry's executive order involving a teacher pay raise. It directs the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education to identify and redirect non-instructional expenses toward teacher pay. Landry says it doesn't cut money from classrooms, reduce teacher salaries, or raise taxes, but some say it could reduce staff and force schools to trim resources for extracurricular activities.
At the end of the day, that's what's important, our students. And we're just fearful that this cut, as significant as it is for us and for our sister and neighboring school systems, is going to impact kids negatively.
If approved by 2/3 of the legislature, the order goes into effect July 1st. Votes have to be in by June 23rd. And speaking of teachers, KNOE has confirmed through multiple sources that the Richland Parish School Board will send out the 13th check today. Payouts for certified teachers are expected to be over $50,000 and up to $17,000 for classified employees. The clean out check is based on sales tax revenue, and there's a big increase this year due to the Meta data center. And speaking of that Meta data center, Meta says it's bringing a new workforce training academy to the state of Louisiana. It's designed to help build data centers like the one we have in Richland Parish. Liam Combs has more.
First, it was a massive data center in Richland Parish. And now Meta is paying for you to get trained to work there and at other AI infrastructure projects around the country.
Grid modernization, data center construction, those core skills, construction, those are going to be jobs in industries that we expect to boom over the next couple of decades. And
after the 4 to 5 week program dubbed America's Workforce Academy, graduates will have a guaranteed conditional job offer to help build future Meta data centers.
So we need people to get reskilled, upskilled, different kinds of skilled, to position them to fill the jobs and make a good living.
Nowadays, instant job training, AI, trades, is where the world is really heading. So to be selected, to be one of the training sites, this is gigantic for us.
State and local leaders tell me they are over the moon excited that Meta is bringing workforce training right here in our backyard. But there is a question about how much your elected officials knew about this project before it was announced.
Well, I have a bunch of questions, and I didn't get the official word. I don't believe it's done till it's done, and we got that word yesterday. It knocked on the door, but I want to knock. We're now in the process of knocking on doors and saying, look, they chose. If they can come here, you can come here.
That's not anything new. According to Louisiana Economic Development, most of the $110 billion in projects coming into our state are shielded behind non-disclosure agreements and public records exemptions.
I would argue that number goes down dramatically. But for an NDA, this project doesn't exist, right? There were certain criteria that a company like Meta had to have before they even came to the state to start considering this kind of multi-billion-dollar investment.
For the LED secretary, the proof is in the pudding, with Meta's initial investment in North Louisiana paving the way for this new career pipeline in our backyard.
And in other news, students are improving reading scores in the state. K through third graders all saw better proficiency scores. The Department of Education shows kindergarten students had the highest jump. These scores show the amount of students reading at or above grade level. They say students with disabilities also improved by an average of 10 points. And in other news, the town of Winnsboro says customers may see low to no water pressure overnight this week while crews make repairs to the water distribution system. Repairs are scheduled for this Thursday between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. Town officials say Winnsboro will remain under a water advisory during the repair period, with hopes to be lifted on Saturday. Residents should boil water for at least 1 minute before drinking, cooking, or brushing their teeth. And low water at the locks near Columbia is leaving boaters stuck and hurting business at Moon Lake Marina in Monroe. The Corps say a 3-foot drawdown that started in July of 2025 is tied to an ongoing emergency at the Columbia Lock and Dam. Marina owners say they need clear communication and a timeline.
And we're not given a timeline on when it's going to be fixed. You can't get an answer from anybody. And like I said, we're trying to rebuild this year because of damage done to the ice storm. Of course, it's going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars to rebuild, and you're scared to do that, not knowing what's going to happen.
Neat says the water has been low since the last 4th of July and has cost her 80% in profit. We are now going to take a very quick break, but right after this, Chief Meteorologist Marcus Walter will have a look at the forecast. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Well, we are joined now with Chief Meteorologist Marcus Walter. How are you today, Marcus?
You know, I'm doing well, but you mentioned it before we
Yes.
came back on air. It is hot out there for sure.
Very hot. You know, this is supposed to be a suit set, like suit pants, and then the jacket. I had to ditch the jacket before I even left the house this morning.
Exactly. You have your guns
Yes.
out today.
I don't know how you do it, I'd have to say.
Well, usually, fortunately, it's manageable in the studio where I spend most of my time. And I know a lot of people here at the station, they complain about how cold it typically is.
That's
in here.
true.
But yeah, but I haven't been outside too much.
With
more,
how
so-
warm it's been in here, it's really cold, I do have to say,
Yeah.
but it's a relief because
Yeah.
it is so hot outside.
Yeah, it is hot, and at last check, temperatures were already in the low and mid 90s.
Wow.
So yeah, we're more of this is on the way. Now this is a look outside. We see just a few puffy cumulus clouds. We've had high pressure dominating our weather over the last few days, so that's why we've been staying hot and dry. But I do want to talk about what's happening, or what could potentially. It has about a 10% chance of formation over the next 7 days. It's not really forecast to form into a tropical system, but the moisture associated with this disturbance that will develop, that's what will impact us early next week and bring a tremendous amount of rain to the area. So here's a look at our futurecast looking at the tropics. We're noticing a lot of moisture across the southern Gulf. That's the moisture that will connect with the cold front that will develop over the weekend, and it'll channel Gulf moisture, tropical moisture across our region as we head toward Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and you'll see it extend up toward the mid-Atlantic. We're talking about heavy rain and some of us picking up several inches of rain early next week. In the meantime, before that happens, we will be hot. We're looking at temperatures in the mid-90s from now through Saturday, lower 90s by Sunday, and then mid-80s on Monday as that wet weather starts to impact us. Now, this is our current weather pattern. We've been showing you this all week. We have a lot of hot air in place across the southern United States, and it's centered right across Texas and Louisiana, so that's why we've been so hot. And this will stay in place at least until the weekend, but a trough starts to dig into the middle of the country, and it sets the stage not only for a cold front to sweep across our region early next week, but it also helps pull some of that tropical moisture in our direction, and so that's why we're expecting heavy rain for the first part of next week, and we're giving you the first alert now about that wet weather that's on the way. Now, temperatures at the moment sit at 93 degrees here in Monroe. We have wind just above 5 miles per hour. Temperatures across the rest of the arc limits are generally in the low 90s, 91 in El Dorado, 92 in Ruston, 90 degrees in Vicksburg and in Natchez, but the same goes for Tallulah. But it feels even hotter. Our friends to the west feeling like 100 in Shreveport, but here in Monroe, we are feeling like 101 at this hour. So that heat, that humidity, it is impacting us. As Mallory mentioned, it was hot, and again, we're expecting more of this as we head into the start of the weekend at the very least. Now, our planner shows that air temperatures will be in the low 90s through 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and 6 p.m., and then by 8 p.m. we'll be in the upper 80s, but we're overall expecting quiet, just hot weather. If you're planning to do some yard work, things still look good from now through Sunday, so get out there, cut that grass, prune those bushes, maybe plant some flowers. Again, your mowing forecast shows that things look good over the next several days. Let's talk about rain. Again, we stay mainly dry into the weekend, but early next week, we're looking at several inches of rain likely across our region. That's because of that disturbance. What's left of it, the moisture associated with it, will be channeled in our direction. So you'll need the umbrellas, you'll need the rain jackets. It won't be a pool type of beginning of the week. You'll need to likely be inside, or at least with the rain gear on. Here's a look at futurecast. Our futurecast showing that we are quiet through Thursday and Friday. Friday, a front will be nearby, but it'll likely stay just north of us. We can't rule out a spotty shower toward El Dorado, but really no major issues expected, at least through Sunday. But as we head toward Monday, I mentioned that moisture. It really does move overhead with that cold front. As of now, we're not expecting severe weather. Heavy rain is the biggest threat, but it is something we will keep an eye out for. If we have the threat for severe weather develop, our first alert weather team, will keep you updated. Tonight, we're going with a low of 76 degrees with a clear sky, similar to where we were last night. And the 8-day forecast shows that we'll be in the mid-90s from now through Saturday, lower 90s Sunday, and then wet weather early next week. It's not until Thursday that we start to dry out. But the big stories are we're hot and humid now, and we're getting ready for heavy rain early next week. Keep that in mind.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, dozens of 9/11 claims processors are being added to help survivors get the medical care that they need. It's a move that comes about a year and a half after the federal government cut positions to cut costs. But critics said 9/11 survivors suffered slow claims that cost them quick access to the health care that they needed. National investigative reporter Carice Jackman looks into concerns that even with restored staffing, the backlog will take a very long time to clear.
I noticed there was a policeman standing there, and he was agitated, and he was talking into his radio saying, "Do you want me to come over? Do you want me to come over?" I could smell diesel fuel, and I thought it was very, very strange.
It was a day America promised to never forget.
And as I walked out the door, pieces of paper on fire came down in front of me. It was surreal.
The fire and the hole in the building got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll never forget my wife screaming at me on the phone, "Get out of there."
But 25 years later, survivors say that promise is broken.
Show me or tell me what you're looking at for me.
This is an album that was put together by my roommates that I was sharing an apartment with in Jersey City. They were amateur photographers.
The images in Tim Casey's album feel surreal.
It definitely threw me for a loop. I actually had to get out of the city after that. I couldn't live there.
He says it's hard to believe it's been a quarter of a century since the September 11th attacks took the lives of nearly 3,000 people in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania.
I'm a 9/11 survivor. I was on the last PATH train into the World Trade Center on 9/11.
He remembers the day vividly.
I'm not someone to be a looky-loo, but I decided to try and figure out what was going on. As I walked around the building towards the second tower, the second plane came through the building from the other side. And as I looked back up, I noticed that there were what appeared to be matchsticks over my head. It finally did compute that they weren't matchsticks, they were actually girders and steel beams and so on. So at that point, I started running.
Casey ran from the Twin Towers and eventually made his way back to Jersey across the Hudson River.
How would you, describe just going through the motions that day?
Surreal is probably the best way to describe it. I mean, you really can't fathom what's happening.
Those who lived and worked nearby tried their best to move forward. But 17 years after September 11th, in 2018, the debris and dust cloud seared into Casey's memory reared its head again, this time within his body, in the form of cancer. It first started when Casey says doctors noticed a spot on his lung.
While I was on the table, they did the pathology and found I had lung cancer, adenocarcinoma, and at that time they removed my upper left lobe and 22 lymph nodes, all while I was under, so it was like a 4-hour procedure. In the meantime, my poor wife is sitting there. It was a very traumatic thing.
When did you discover that specific type of lung cancer is related oftentimes to people who were around the site of 9/11?
I contacted Barish McGarry as a law firm and asked them, if they take the case, and it turned out it was a very common, one of the most common lung cancers that was came out of 9/11.
Since the attacks, 9/11 related illnesses have continued to increase. You can see the numbers growing here. People filing with the World Trade Center Health Program, which serves over 125,000 first responders and survivors from across the country by providing them medical monitoring and treatment for 9/11 related health conditions.
Right through here, need a bucket line.
But those close to 9/11 survivors say they're not getting the care they need on time.
On Wednesday.
In the years following the attacks, attorney Michael Barish represented close to 50,000 people in the 9/11 community.
Now the health program is fully funded, which is great. And you would think, well, now we can just represent our clients, and we don't have to lobby anymore.
He says he's watched the number of enrollees climb while staffing decreased.
So when Mr. Musk came into power, when Mr. Trump was inaugurated, he just like a blowtorch, he cut the health program and many other agencies by 20%, not realizing how this was going to have a real life impact on people's lives.
Our national investigative team combed through World Trade Center Health Program data publicly available, which shows enrollment and certification steadily climbing over the past 5 years, with enrollees coming from multiple states, including the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. But this publicly available data doesn't show how long patients wait for certifications, something that worries 9/11 survivor advocates. New Jersey Senator Andy Kim pressed HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about staffing for the program.
Were you unaware, or were you aware that the decision to cut NIOSH staff would cut that World Trade Center health program?
Well, you know, my agency is the biggest agency in government. It's twice the size of the Pentagon. It represents about 20% of the U.S. economy. We have hundreds of institutes and sub-agencies. We try to be as careful as we can about what we cut and what we didn't. We made a couple of mistakes.
No,
there will be continuity in that program. That's
Continue, yes, but at full strength of where it was before you were secretary?
The program itself will continue.
In April, lawmakers announced the World Trade Center Health Program has now been approved to fully staff up to 120 positions, adding 37 roles that will directly support the responders and survivors who rely on this care every day. Despite this news, advocates tell our national investigative team questions remain about the timeline of these hirings and what the certification process will look like for patients. U.S. Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York has been speaking with the 9/11 community for over 20 years and has been pushing HHS to increase staffing. But she worries about what a backlog will mean for those trying to get care.
We're going to continue to push Secretary of HHS to continue to do the thing he promised, Secretary Kennedy promised, to meet the needs of this program, and we're going to hold him to it.
I know that they said that they were going to make these staffing, they're going to rehire these people, they're going to put them together, but we have not heard anything.
No, and sometimes they're full of, and they don't actually do what they promise to do. And it's very frustrating because they say yes to you, they tell you it's going to be fixed, but then they don't do it. So we are going to be on them to make sure they're not lying, to make sure they're not just obfuscating or trying to delay.
HHS has been publicly silent about the hiring rollout so far.
We are desperately short of good nurses and doctors who can expedite the administration that needs to be done, who can get people in for an appointment and get their cancers certified so that they can get the treatment that they want, they can get their co-pays and deductibles paid if they want to stay with their private doctors.
Bearish and advocates are also concerned about the lack of communication between the program and the 9/11 community, as well as petitions to add cardiac, autoimmune, and cognitive issues to the list of covered conditions. Our national investigative team has asked repeatedly for an on-camera interview with Secretary Kennedy. We also asked for numbers from HHS related to staffing trends over the last 5 years, how many staff members were terminated, how many were rehired, and for the average wait time for patients to be certified and processed. HHS responded but did not provide clarification on the numbers, saying in part, HHS remains committed to the critical programs that serve hardworking Americans across the nation, including 9/11 responders and survivors. The World Trade Center Health Program's Clinical Centers for Excellence and Nationwide Provider Network are continuing to provide services to program members at this time. The program continues to accept and review new enrollment applications and certification requests.
Well, we need the staff to be full, because if you don't have a full complement of staff, then a lot of our first responders, a lot of our ill family members won't be able to reach the 9/11 program efficiently. They won't be able to get the doctors they need.
Back in New York, the 9/11 Museum and Plaza lists the names of those lost at Ground Zero that day. every name carved out for visitors to pay their respects. And on those same grounds, a marking and rock honors those who died from illnesses in the years following the attacks. This spring was the first time Casey returned to Ground Zero in 25 years. To honor their memory, to remember those who died years after the attacks, and for those still struggling to get the health care they need, Casey continues to fight, and more importantly, to remember.
Why do we have to keep going back as sick people to fight for it? Do the right thing. Never forget and do the right thing.
HHS also told our national investigative team in an additional statement, quote, whether it's supporting coal miners and firefighters, safeguarding public health through lead prevention, or researching and tracking the most prevalent communicable diseases, enhancing the health and well-being of all Americans remains a top priority. To read the full details of HHS's statements to our national investigative team, you can visit investigatetv.com. We are now going to take another very quick break, but we'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, ARC limits, the performances are in, and now you get to vote. Watch the Star Spangled Sing-Off entries on KNOE.com/contest and vote for your favorite performance now through June 12th. Pick the one you want to represent the ARC limits as our local winner. Then on June 18th, we'll announce who's moving one step closer to an all-expenses-paid trip to Nashville and film a performance that will air across the country. Well, that is all that we have for now. Be sure to tune into our next newscast. We'll have one at 5, 6, and 10 o'clock. And our next stream will be tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you so much for watching.